the Senate and people of Rome. That, in a nutshell, is what Gladiator 2 was about. Gladiator 2, released 15th November 2024, directed again by Ridley Scott, sitting at current ratings of 6.7 IMDb, 71% Rotten Tomatoes, 64% Metacritic, and having a current total gross of just about $450 million, was watched by me, and I have some thoughts. Gladiator 2 placed 20 years in the future from the original masterpiece, Gladiator, was put in cinemas in 2024, and for this review I'll be a bit biased and I'll explain my bias. In the particular cinema where I viewed this movie, there was very poor timing. The screen, it was a very dirty screen. The projector was poor, had bad aspect ratio, their speakers were bad, so it just looked like a very grey movie I was watching. And I know the trailer, I've watched the trailer. There was a lot of color in this trailer. The way I viewed it in the cinema did not allow me to hear conversations fully or even the music clearly. So just take my review with a little asterisk. To give a little rundown of the plot, Gladiator 2 follows the original movie. Now we have our current gladiator who is trying to run through the Colosseum games at a particular goal. First, to get the head of the general that took away his wife, and secondly, to restore Rome back to the base principle of what Marcus Aurelius wanted, of a government that is run between the Senate and people of Rome, SPQR. Taking a look at the score, it fit the theme, it did what it had to do. It was a basic, not basic, but the score did what it had to do for the sake of the movie it was. Now, looking at the characters, Denzel Washington by far was the best character in the movie, and maybe is it because these actors are old now, the acting wasn't so convincing. You know, there's a way you're meant to be engulfed into the universe of the movie you're watching. Some of the lines seemed a bit rehearsed, and in some scenes there wasn't much emotion. Speaking of our main character, for the kind of story he was working with, he did it well. Although I'll say that I didn't really care for much, and it didn't really make sense to me. Yes, that Hanua ended up to be Lucius. It didn't really make sense to me how he would have survived that long. And also, I didn't really care that, oh, this is Lucius. Yeah, I think they put it as a shocker too that Maximus is the father of Lucius. Just to let you guys know that if you've not seen it already by 2025. Now, this movie is not even about gladiators. Keep it. It's not. The movie is not about gladiators. Comparing it to the first movie, it was Maximus lost his family. Joaquin Phoenix's character became the emperor and wanted to marry his sister. So to stop that from happening, he ran through the gladiator games and ended up killing the emperor to save his former lover and to essentially save Rome. Now we have Lucius's character who was meant to run through the gladiators game to get the general he wanted to kill. That already happened midway through the movie. So the rest of it now, we don't really have what he's driving at. From the moment Pedro Pascal's character was killed, it was basically Denzel Washington's movie. I'll give him credit that he took over this movie as the true villain. We first thought, okay, it will be the general, Pedro Pascal's character. This is our villain. Next thing, when he was dealt with, we're not the emperors, because also with the general, and you find out the general that okay, he's just doing the work of the emperors. They're like, these emperors, we know they have to be they have to be dealt with. As the movie would go, they have to be dealt with. Unbeknownst to us, if that's even the right English, our lurking villain, the puppet master, Denzel Washington, taking over the movie, almost taking over Rome. And I'll leave that to you if you've watched it, if you've not, to know what happened in the end after he took over Rome for a brief moment. But coming back to the movie itself, being a gladiator, everything, it was too easy for him. Yes, it seemed too easy for him, like we know he's going to pass all of this. There was little to no struggle in how he even became so respected in it. And the emperors themselves they weren't intimidating. These were two young brothers, twin emperors, that were already known to be silly and goofy, even in the sense of this older movie. So for co-gladiators inside this movie, compared to Gladiator 1, apart from Maximus himself, at least we knew a little bit about 3 or 4 other gladiators. But now it was just Lucius and his doctor. Other gladiators existed, but we didn't know them by name or even by their own feats because there were no real gladiator fights. All of it was Lucius going through, parading through everybody. The main king that was helping him back in Africa was too easily killed. In the first exhibition, they shouldn't have used. I feel like made up CGI monkeys wasn't the right way to go. They could have actually gone the first route of just having gladiators prepared in the first exhibition for them to run and pillage through, or them all being handcuffed to just try and live through the end of the first exhibition. But that went the way it went. Lucius' mother, maybe age has caught up. Her interactions with Lucius didn't. For some parts, I even thought she was delusional. Is this really her son? Even Lucius deciding not to kill the general or deciding to be on the general side with the little conversation inside the battlefield, them having no prior conversations in this whole movie seemed too scripted, did not hit as hard as it was meant to hit or as hard as Ridley Scott wanted it to hit. Running through that, after talking about the score, coming to the plot was basically everywhere. As I said, Lucius's beginning intentions ended halfway through the movie, and after then, it copied a few things from the first movie, which is having an external army waiting. There were no army battles, it was just Rome in the beginning coming to pillage the African town. So it had like what Maximus wanted, an external army that is waiting by his name coming through, but that didn't end up happening. Then also Denzel Washington taking over Rome, but not really taking over Rome because it didn't even last that long. And gladiator games that at a point weren't even for the sake of them being gladiator games, but just for the emperors to try and even best themselves or answer to Denzel's character. Then for conversation between characters, for some interactions, there were solid interactions, but a lot of the interactions outside our main characters were pretty weak. I will give them thumbs up for the way the movie looked. There was proper lighting throughout. Like this doesn't look like you. It obviously looks like they were shot. Some of the shots were on location, hard lighting, or we would call chiaroscuro in art, and that's about it for the lighting part. Given all things, I would watch this movie again just so maybe the things I couldn't see in my initial viewing, I would end up seeing them now. I don't think that would save the poor interaction between characters or why I don't care that Lucius' mother ended up dying, but also part of the movie not being a proper gladiator movie is Lucius not dying. Except they're intending a third movie, which doesn't seem likely. I would have preferred for the Gladiator would die. Because the first movie, Russell Crowe was basically at the height of his acting powers back then, and he died as the Gladiator should. Both our villain and Victor died. Now in this movie, minor heroes, all the villains and some memorable characters died, but our main gladiator still remained alive. And with the way the movie ended or what he's intending to do, he won't end up being the emperor for him wanting to fulfill Marcus Aurelius' dream of a government of just the Senate and people. So, with a good score, a pretty weak plot, and an okay interaction between characters, on IMDb I gave this movie 3.5. The movie is closer to 6.5 than it is to an 8. So, apart from 3.5, for an over 10 rating, I would give it maybe a 7.1, 7.2. Regardless of that, I'll watch it again and then in the future give an updated review. But this has been Ryan's review. This is Ryan's Studio. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.